Welcome to the Robots vs. Vampires podcast. I'm Adrian Smith, and we're diving into some awesome sci-fi and fantasy today.
I'm Julia Jones, and I'm ready for another epic adventure, especially one where things get a little strange, a little supernatural.
Yeah, we always love those unexpected clashes. And
Yeah.
today's story, Lily Sees Crimson, it definitely has one. We're talking vampires like they're living right in front of everyone.
Oh, wow, okay.
But there's this little girl, Lily, and she can see their true nature.
Ooh, that's interesting, like a hidden world kind of thing.
Exactly, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Mm.
but with its own twist, for sure.
I love Buffy. That whole idea of seeing what others can't, it's like a classic for a reason, right? Immediately sets our protagonist apart and kind of hints at the challenges they'll face. So what's it like for Lily with this special sight of hers? What does she see?
Imagine your Lily just skipping down the street,
Yeah.
Everything seems totally normal.
Okay.
Until you look at Mr. Finch the baker and you see Fangs. Or you glance at Mrs. Bloom the florist and her eyes are glowing red. It's like their everyday masks are slipping just a little.
And only Lily notices.
Only Lily.
So we've got vampires integrated into society, hiding in plain sight. Kind of reminds me of that movie Dark City. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, good one.
Where reality is like constantly shifting, hiding this dark truth underneath. It really makes you wonder how these vampires managed to keep up their disguises for so long and what would happen if they were exposed.
Well, speaking of exposure, things take a pretty dark turn when this creature appears.
Yeah.
It's way more menacing than these everyday vampires we've been talking about.
Oh.
It shows up in an alleyway,
Yeah.
shrouded in darkness, eyes like burning coals.
Definitely not your friendly neighborhood vampire then.
No, not at all. This
Sure.
is something else entirely.
Okay, so this is where it really hooks you. What makes this creature so different? Is it like a rogue vampire, or is this something even older, even more powerful?
Ooh, that's a good question.
The stakes just got a lot higher.
Lily's terrified. I mean, understandably.
Yeah.
And what does she do? She instinctively turns to something really unexpected.
Right.
Rhymes and like childish games.
Rhymes. What?
It's like she's trying to create this protective barrier around herself using her imagination.
Do you think there's something deeper there, or is it just pure instinct? I mean, it's fascinating, right? Makes me think about how belief and willpower are often portrayed in fantasy. Like in the Chronicles of Narnia, belief literally shapes the world around them.
Right.
Could Lily's innocent faith actually be messing with the rules of this vampire world?
That is a really cool connection. And here's where it gets even wilder. This monstrous vampire, he's actually thrown off by these rhymes. Like Lily's words cause his monstrous facade to crack, and you see this wizened old man underneath.
Wow, so those seemingly harmless rhymes, they have an actual impact. It reminds me of Star Wars. You know how the Force can be used to manipulate the physical world? Could these rhymes be tapping into some ancient magic or power that this old vampire is somehow vulnerable to?
It seems that way. He actually retreats, muttering about the light of day and the veil between worlds thinning.
The thinning veil. Wait, that's a huge deal. That makes me think of the Sandman comics. You know how the barrier between dreams and reality weakens? What if this thinning veil means the vampires are becoming more vulnerable? Or what if humans start seeing them for what they really are?
Oh, that's a good point.
Lots of possibilities.
Now, the townspeople, they're sensing something's wrong, but they can't figure out what it is. And guess where their suspicion falls?
On Lily.
On Lily, of course.
She's the only one who sees the truth, right? That makes her an outsider. It's dangerous, especially if the town turns against her. It's like all those sci-fi stories where the person with special abilities is seen as a threat. Is Lily in danger?
She's definitely in a very precarious position. But even though she's just a child, she accepts her role. It's almost like she understands that someone has to protect the town, even if they don't get it.
Wow, there's like a real hero's journey brewing here. A young girl thrust into the situation she doesn't fully understand, choosing to stand against the darkness. It's giving me Stranger Things vibes. Like a group of kids facing these unimaginable horrors to save their town. Is Lily ready for this?
That's the big question.
Mm.
And we'll have to see how she rises to the challenge. But one thing's for sure, things are about to get a lot more complicated for Lily and for the town. And for you listening, get ready, because we're about to uncover the fallout of this encounter and what it means for them. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Robots vs. Vampires podcast.
Where the stakes are higher than ever for our young hero, Lily.
It's crazy to think about those rhymes, just simple rhymes actually disrupting like some ancient magical order.
It's like almost a glitch in the Matrix. You know, like in the Matrix where Neo bends the rules of reality? It's possible Lily's innocent belief is doing something similar here, like bypassing the usual rules of magic.
It's like her imagination is a weapon, and way more powerful than anyone thought. And now with the veil between the human world and the supernatural world thinning the vampires, they're getting more vulnerable. Think the townspeople are going to start noticing anything different about their neighbors.
Well, they'd have to, right? I mean, if the veil keeps thinning, it's only a matter of time before the vampires' true forms are harder to hide. Imagine Mr. Finch trying to bake bread with his fangs out, or Mrs. Bloom arranging flowers with those glowing red
That's
eyes.
a hilarious image. It's like those sci-fi movies where aliens try to blend in, but their true forms just keep peeking through, no
Yeah,
matter how hard they try to fit in.
exactly. And I bet the vampires are feeling the pressure. They've been hidden in plain sight for who knows how long, and now their world is unraveling. That's got to be terrifying.
And as the vampires are becoming more exposed, the townspeople are starting to feel it. They can't see the fangs or the glowing eyes, but there's this growing sense of unease, like something is off.
It's like that creeping dread you get in movies like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You know, something's wrong, but you can't quite pinpoint what it is.
Exactly. They're sensing the change in the atmosphere, the thinning of the veil,
Yeah.
but they just can't see the source. And unfortunately, all that suspicion lands right on Lily.
Of course. She's the outsider, the one who can see what everyone else is blind to.
Yeah.
It's that classic trope, right? The person with special abilities gets ostracized or feared. Like in X-Men, mutants are seen as a threat just because they're different.
Yeah, that's a sad reality. But it's also what makes Lily's character so interesting. Despite all the fear and isolation, she steps forward, clutching that little wooden stake she made for imaginary foes. And she says, "My name is Lily, and I see monsters."
Whoa, what a powerful moment. That image of her standing up to the entire town armed with nothing but her courage and the truth. It's incredible.
It really is. And in that moment, everything changes. The townspeople are stunned. You can almost see the fear, the confusion, and maybe even like a tiny sliver of understanding on their faces when they hear her words.
It's like a crack in their reality. The world they thought they knew is shifting. And they're starting to realize that this little girl might hold the key to their survival. But how are they going to react to this new unsettling truth? Will they believe her, or will they just dismiss her as a child with an overactive imagination?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And as we head into the final part of this story, think about this. If you were in Lily's shoes, how would you convince a town full of skeptics that the monsters they can't see are real? How do you bridge that gap between what you know to be true and what others are willing to believe? Welcome back to the Robots vs. Vampires podcast.
We're really hanging on here wondering what's going to happen next with Lily in the town.
You know, Lily's declaration, "I see monsters," that really changed things. It's one thing to know the truth, but convincing others, that's a whole different story, especially when we're talking about something as wild as vampires.
It's that struggle, you know, between believing and not believing. How do you prove something exists when it's hidden right in front of you? It's like Men in Black, remember? The agent's always trying to convince everyone that the world isn't what it seems.
Yeah, good comparison. Lily's dealing with the same challenge. But she doesn't have any cool gadgets or memory wipers. She's got her words and the truth. And that might not be enough for a town full of people who don't want to believe.
It's those conspiracy thriller movies, right? Where the hero knows something big is going on, but nobody believes them. They're called crazy or paranoid, even though they have proof.
Yeah, and that's what makes this story connect with us. Even though it's got fantasy stuff in it, we've all been there. You know, feeling like nobody gets what we're trying to say. Imagine trying to convince people about vampires hiding among them.
Makes you think about how we decide what to believe. What would it take to change your mind about something you thought you knew for sure?
Big questions. So back to the story, what happens next? Does Lily convince the town? Do they believe her about the vampires?
The story doesn't really give us a yes or no. It ends and makes us imagine what might happen. Lily, even though people are scared and don't believe her, she decides to be their protector. She's the one who can see past the illusions.
So she's basically saying, I'm going to do what needs to be done, whether you believe me or not. That's pretty brave for a little girl facing a town full of adults who doubt her.
Yeah, definitely. It's a strong ending because it leaves us with so many questions. Like, will the townspeople come around? Will they finally see what Lily's been trying to show them? And what about that old vampire who ran off? Will he be back, and will Lily be ready for him?
Feels like the story is challenging us to figure out what happens next. You know, it sparks our curiosity, makes us think about the possibilities, which is what good sci-fi and fantasy does right.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of our Robots vs. Vampires deep dive into Lily Sees Crimson. It's a story that mixes classic fantasy with real-world worries about the unknown, makes us think about how we see things, and leaves us with more questions than answers.
It reminds us that sometimes the most amazing stories are hidden in plain sight, just waiting for us to open our minds and see the world differently.
Mm.
And who knows, maybe we all have a little bit of Lily inside us, ready to stand up for what we believe, even when people doubt us.
If you enjoyed this awesome adventure, be sure to rate, follow, and share Robots vs. Vampires for more epic stories where sci-fi and fantasy meet.
We'll be back tomorrow with another story that will spark your imagination. Until then, keep exploring the edges of what's possible. You never know what you might find hiding just below the surface of everyday life.